Get ready for the Ochelli Effect.
And here we are. It is the 6th day of September. Is it the 6th? I think it is. Let's see. Yeah, it is. It's the 6th day of September, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar. And this is a show you might have been looking for. It's the Ochelli Effect. And I'm live here on a Wednesday, and it's definitely a wild card sort of night. If you're hearing me on the live stream, it's great. I know we went to air real late, about quarter after, or, well, more than quarter after. Geez. Anyways, it doesn't matter if you're hearing the podcast or if you're catching the video. Now, I was going to have my friend here on the video directly, but there was a little bit of an issue with technical stuff and sound and all that. So this time, we're not going to see him on video, but I've got him on audio. His name is Alex Harris. Now, somebody might say, hey, I might recognize that name, and others might say, I have no idea who the heck that is. No problem either way. He's conducting research, though, and he's conducting research in a specified area regarding the JFK assassination, and that is the photographic evidence. Okay. I had a fairly long conversation with him on the phone just the other day and was introduced to the idea of this young man by people that are organizing the Lancer conference. Guess why? He'll be presenting. And I'm fairly certain he is the youngest presenter ever to go to any of the Lancer conferences, maybe any of the conferences on the Kennedy assassination, and actually present. Reminds me of my own story, because I started when I was still in high school taking a look at this event seriously. Now, does that mean that this kid is anything like me? No, he's not, because he's not a juvenile delinquent and he's younger. Okay, so at the age of 13, here he is, and he's going to be 14 when he presents at Lancer this year. Really fascinated at how much he has his stuff together. Regarding the assassination, his knowledge, the historiography of the photographic evidence alone is better than most of the people I run into who claim to have some sort of expertise in general on the assassination already. Plus, he's looking to assemble archives, this and that. Maybe he's going to tell you a bunch more. But first, we're going to find out a little bit about his background and how he got into the case right here on the show. And before I even get to that, Alex, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
It is really good to have you on. I'm really happy to have you on. Strange situation. I never thought and could never get, say, my own kids to take a look at the Kennedy assassination as teenagers. When I was a teenager, I was definitely all alone looking at the case. None of my friends who were musicians, none of my friends who were also, well, some of them were hoodlums and such. They were not all good kids. Okay. And hardly anybody wanted to know about the Kennedy assassination or any of that crap. I was a nut onto myself. And I'm being blunt here. You, first of all, you're a nice guy. You're a level guy. You don't sound like the average 13-year-old to me to begin with. And clearly you're not, because you're into the assassination. So let's go for it. And I don't even know the details of this story, guys. I'm going to learn this along with you, like how he actually got into the case. I kind of asked a couple of questions about it, but didn't really get the full story. So I'm going to let Alex just tell you. So you ready to roll and tell us exactly how it is you just decided that this was a big point of interest for you? I mean, in your own words, go for it.
Yeah, I've known for a while about the assassination. I've known that it happened. It wasn't till about towards the end of when I was in 5th grade that I really started getting into it. I just so happened to be on YouTube, and I watched the Zapruder film for the first time, and something about it just got me interested in the case. And I just I looked into it a little bit, because I had never looked into it that much before. And just got really interested.
Yeah, so what you're saying is it's just you stumbled across the Zapruder film on YouTube and that's it? I mean, you just saw that and you went, okay, I know about the assassination, but now I've seen the Zapruder film. Something is wrong with this idea. Something is wrong with the image I'm seeing. I mean, what was it that grabbed you? Just like, wow, that's it. That's what people have talked about over the years that I was sort of familiar
Yeah,
with. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. So what came next? I mean, you saw the Zapruder film. That's striking. It was available on YouTube. By the way, do you know what channel or what version of the Zapruder film you were looking at? Because
Um,
there were a few on YouTube.
I believe, um, I think a lot of people have watched this version. It's for some reason a French magazine posted a version straight from the MPI digitizations.
Mhm.
It's a very low quality, but it's it's acceptable.
Right. So what you're telling me is the French magazine, which by the way I can't remember the name or probably pronounce it myself, but you're saying the MPI version. Now, for the uninitiated out there, we are talking about the home video version that was released most likely under the title "Image of an Assassination,"
Yep.
and it was done through VHS actually
Yeah.
in the late '80s. And MPI released a series of documentaries and other things related to the JFK case during that time. But quite famously, there was a reconstruction, a scanning. The better quality Zapruder film for a long time was contained on that videotape, which I don't even know if they turned it into a DVD because it was popular for a bit at your local Blockbuster for sure
Yeah.
back in the day. But there it is, yeah, transferred onto YouTube by some French magazine. I recall that video. I don't know if it's up anymore.
I
Actually,
think it is.
okay, but either way, I mean, there are many different versions. Some people have reconstructed them, restabilized them in different ways, shown
Yep.
us the sprocket holes, not the sprocket holes. Did you start to dig into that on YouTube as well? Like, let me see what other versions there are.
I certainly looked for other versions of it. And I did find quite a few.
Hmm. Well, at one point, you could have stumbled across one on my channel when I still had a channel a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it seemed like anybody who was interested in the case had some sort of copy of the Zapruder film up there, even though the Zapruder family retained the copyright and then, sold the allegedly extant film in the '90s to the U.S. government, and then donated their copy of the film to the Sixth Floor Museum as a tax write-off. I'm sure you learned that story later on.
Yeah.
But that was the process of what the records collection, right?
Yeah.
So look, the Zapruder film's one thing, but what happens next? Because the Zapruder film is not the beginning and the end of the photographic universe here. So what was the next step after you were captivated by the Z film? Did you watch Oliver Stone's JFK? Did you catch other documentaries? Did you turn on? I know, Grandpa, nobody watches TV anymore, but did you turn on the History Channel? I mean, tell me about it. What was next?
I mean, I know I was certainly interested in looking at other photographs around the assassination, so I started looking for those. Uh, and eventually stumbled upon the Nix film and the Muchmore film, which both of them I watched, of course. Um, yeah,
Right. Okay. So then you got the films from the other side of the street, two of them at least. And okay, so those contain the sequence, which also contains the headshot, just like the Zapruder film.
yep,
Logical progression. All right, so the motion pictures are one thing, and then if you dig deep enough into that rabbit hole, you find that really the filming around Dealey Plaza, you've got 20 something films there,
yeah,
everything from Pascal to Darnell to Cook to Zapruder and on and on. And no, I didn't put them in alphabetical order. Why bother? All the
yeah,
way to Jack Daniels' film, which Jack Daniel and the S is for it belonging to him. Jack Daniels' film, who is on the other side of the triple underpass as the limo passes through. And so
yep,
you have a bunch of films in this sequence, even the film which is captured by the U.S. government, right? The made into a documentary. What was it called? The Last 2 Days,
yeah.
something like this. Um, And okay, so there's a lot of footage. Now, where do we go? Did you seek guidance? Did you start to read? Did you get into documentaries, or what was next?
Yeah, I certainly did look into watching some documentaries. I can't remember how many I watched, but I did watch quite a few. Um, but those definitely got me more interested in the assassination, and I eventually stumbled across other images surrounding the assassination, and yeah, but the photographic and motion picture evidence is something I've always been interested in from the start.
Hmm. Well, here's another question. Were you interested in photographs or photographic evidence of any other historical events, or was this the first one that grabbed you? Because clearly there are other events which have been photographed, not quite as much, it seems, as this, which is odd, from various amateur cameras mostly, but some professional cameras captured many events surrounding this historical event of significance. But did you study any other historical events, or were you just like a photography buff? Did you just like cameras? I mean, tell me about that as well.
Um, I mean, I know since I was fairly young, I have been interested in other historical events such as the Hindenburg disaster and God, I can't think of another one right now. But I did look into those quite a bit, but not none nearly as much as what I'm doing now, of course.
Well, there's not the same library of stuff. Look, with the Hindenburg, there's only two films, as far as I know,
Yeah,
two motion picture films.
I think
you know,
there's six in total.
six. Wow. Okay. Well, you know what? The one that was discovered later, I think, might contain clips to all put together. The one that I'm thinking of as the second film. Maybe there are six, but
Yeah.
I only know of two. And by the way, I used to live and work right by Lakehurst Naval Base.
Wow.
In New Jersey. So it was a point of interest for me as local history, an
Yeah.
interesting place to be in general. And of course, that is a fascinating thing. Everybody's familiar with the radio, oh God, the humanity, and all that.
Yeah.
The radio replay, and of course, the most iconic film of it. Most people believe there's only one film,
Yeah.
but there are indeed more than one film, and maybe there's six. I'd like to see that. Maybe you could send me a couple links to something later, and I'd love
Yeah.
to learn about it. But
And
anyway, yeah. So okay, the Hindenburg. So history and film coming together. You could even take a look at the still photos, from an assassination 100 years earlier than
yeah.
Kennedy, if you wanted to study some interesting photographic archives that were kept by the U.S. government, even including the execution of the conspirators when it comes to the Lincoln assassination, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so Kennedy got you, and you had sort of a general interest in history and film. All right. So let's take this further. What goes on next? I mean, what drives you to next really study this and get into the stills and everything else? I mean, the arrays that you can get a hint of from, say, Robert Groden's books, which contain what, 800 and 1,000 pictures a piece, each of these things. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got it right here just as a point of reference. I didn't know if we were going to bring anything up, so I was going to reference them. I got the Search for Lee Harvey Oswald,
Yeah.
Absolute Proof, and the killing. Oh, I dropped something, but the killing of a president.
Yeah.
Right here in case we needed to go to them. But the books are interesting, and they give you copies of a lot of things. But you didn't want
Yeah.
just the copies. You went after other things. So tell me about that when you started to try and collect and what your sources were. I mean, give us all an idea about what's the next step for somebody who wants to dig deeply into the film as far as you're concerned, still or movie.
Um, I mean, I know gosh, what was it? I think definitely I been interested in all the copies of everything.
Mhm.
Um I can't remember what I was gonna say, dang it.
It's okay. First of all, let's just tell you guys listening right now that, I don't believe Alex has done a podcast at all before in long format like he's doing right now. I think this is the first time ever. And I'm fairly certain this is the first
Yeah.
time you've done it talking about this case. So it's not like this is old hat for you. This is brand new. In case somebody's
Yeah.
wondering, why is he forgetting what he's saying? It's all right. First of all. Secondly, even though that voice is really mature, again, I'm talking to a guy who's at this point in time 13, and when he presents at Lancer this year, he'll be 14. And I'm not making excuses for you. You spoke quite eloquently to me on the phone, and you're doing a good job
Yeah.
now. Don't worry about it. If you lose track of a thought, just fill it in with another. I am trying to discover just how you got here is all I'm
Yeah.
trying to get to. And I want to show people what that is, what that journey might contain. So you take your time and tell it your own way. We're here to listen. Go right ahead, and I'm happy to hear it any way you tell it.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about the Hindenburg.
Sure.
One of the films of the of the Hindenburg, but was shot by a person named Thomas Joseph P. Craven, whose son actually was in the Dallas motorcade, who's known as Thomas Joseph Craven Jr. And of course, I'm sure several people know about the missing Dealey Plaza Craven film. But yeah, I think that's interesting. He worked for CBS.
Ah, okay. That is an interesting and odd connection. We often find that there are weird connective tissues between figures and events in history. Did not know. You just gave me a fact I didn't know. That there was a connection between the Craven who took the film, the Hindenburg, and the Craven in the motorcade there. That is interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Go ahead. What else did you want to tell us about?
I think that's all I can think of right now. Did you have any other questions?
Yeah, no problem. Again, I want to go back to what was the next thing? I mean, did you get some books? Maybe you got Grodin's books, like I mentioned, because those would be easily accessible. Or a book we talked about off air the other day, Pictures of the Pain, was a really interesting resource for me. At a certain point, I was really glad to see when that book came out. Okay, because it helped me a lot trying to collect things in the days before the internet. And I needed it in the days before we started swapping things on message boards, and we're no longer doing it by chain letter. So it was helpful. But I mean, which book or what did you turn to next to give you a reference guide or give you an idea of what the photographic evidence could possibly contain if you were to attempt to collect it all, say?
I think I did go to the Harold Weisberg archives, which are there's quite a bit of it online. It's just a resource that I stumbled upon. Can't remember when, but it's certainly a useful thing. There's probably hundreds of thousands of documents on there. They're all very useful. I just started reading through a lot of them. And I think that definitely helped me get into the photographic evidence more. I think Harold Weisberg photocopied a little bit of Pictures of the Pain, and I was able to read a little bit of it from there.
Right.
But I hadn't read the full book, and I didn't even actually know where that photocopy had even come from until I got the book.
Right. So you went to the Harold Weisberg papers, which are held at a university. Remember which university that was?
I cannot know.
I think I'm wanting to say it's Hood in Texas there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now I have not made a visit to that archive, although some of it, like you said, is available online now. They have a couple of different research archives there, and Weisberg kept quite a bit of documentation, but also took some time to study. photographs in different versions of some of his self-published books. I think it was maybe Whitewash 4 might have been the photographic study, but I'm pulling this from memory from a long time ago. But either way, he had taken time to study stuff and even got involved in the earliest debates about the guy in the doorway and whether that was Lee Harvey Oswald. And I think Harold was working with maybe not the best material, and he came up with some ideas that possibly that was Oswald in the doorway, etc. And the Altkins photo, which now brings us into, look, you have professional press photos that were taken by newspaper people, by the Associated Press. You have film that was taken by TV. You have film that was taken by a White House photographer for sure. But there's also tons and tons of amateur photographs and films. Everything from the Dallas Cinema Associates reels to Abraham Zapruder on the films. And I mean, it's crazy to think about the all the different photographers, everybody from Mary Mormon, right? Mary Mormon Kramer, all the way to God, who else there? There was the girl. She was very young, and she took stuff.
Tina Towner.
Tina Towner, yes. Because what, her father had the film camera, or maybe she had the film camera.
Yeah.
I forget which, but it's like a family with cameras standing there, right? I think it was Bill Towner, William Towner.
It was Jim. It was James Towner.
James. Okay, great. Look, some of this stuff is a little blurry in my mind, but I remember going through these pictures and thinking to myself, this is amazing that there were so many different photographers there. So many different people trying to capture images of the president that wound up capturing images that lend some sort of information about the circumstances regarding the assassination straight to us. And the way that these things have been, in some cases, preserved, lost, rediscovered, found again, even the Patsy Paskal film, which was not seen for a long time, although the HSCA was aware of it. It didn't get on TV for a long time. And then, what was it, around the 30th anniversary or something, there were people trying to sell it, and they were broadcasting it on Dallas TV.
Yeah.
Something they were incapable of doing on the day of the assassination. Anyway, I digress. I want to go into the universe where you went into it. So you got a hold of some information on the assassination, went through the Weisberg archives. What was the next part of the journey? I mean, did you say, all right, I see some of these pictures, some of these photographs. I don't usually see them. I've watched some documentaries. I see the still images that they keep using over and over again. Of course, you saw Altkins. Of course, you saw parts of the official White House photographers documentary about the weekend of the assassination. Of course, you saw that. Of course, you saw, Mary Mormon's still image. Guaranteed that was there, at least in a quick rush, because that was a Polaroid. Interesting quality on that.
Yeah.
And Zapruder's film, constantly shown to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's a whole lot more to it. So where did you go from there? Did you say, okay, what do I do next? Do I just search online for these things? What do I find? What did you do?
I think from there, what I did is I started looking back on, there's probably hundreds of blogs and posts online from really the early 2000s that I look back upon. And those certainly helped me with some of my research. It got me interested in the autopsy photographs. But there's several websites like that I looked back, some from like 2005, 2003.
Right.
Around that time that I did look back upon. A lot of them I don't think are up anymore even. But I was able to look at some of those and read what some people were putting on there, and that did get my interest more.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, okay, the publications. Now, what year is this that we're talking about? Because 2003 was the 40th anniversary, and we're getting close to 2013, I guess. after a little bit, if you're looking at 2005 and all that, yeah, there was a bunch of like very blocky sort of rudimentary websites that sometimes had great photographic images on them.
Yeah.
It was like the best part of the website. And it's strange because, okay, the autopsy photos you brought up. So you're aware that officially the autopsy photos have never been seen,
Yeah.
but you ended up having to learn about the fact that there is a copy or a copy of a set of photos out there that are legitimate somehow, although they weren't meant to be released. So, when did
Yeah.
you learn about that, or do you want to bring up the what I always call the Fox set of photographs?
Yeah.
Um, with good reason. Go ahead.
Um, I mean, I'd seen a couple of those for some reason used in a few news articles. But I didn't see the full set of those for a while until gosh, I can't remember where I found the full set. Um, Actually, I think it was Robin Unger's big archive online. Uh,
Robin Unger, yeah.
yeah,
That would be it. That would be a good shout out there. And yeah, indeed, shout out to Robin Unger, who had, again, I don't remember how much him and I agreed or disagreed on many a thing, but he definitely had some photographs of interest. I ended up with pretty good scans, and there were some that were making their way in the press because, ready for this one, the National Enquirer published a bunch of them at a
Huh.
certain point. So you had the stare of death. I'm sure you don't remember this because you weren't even born yet when this was happening, and a lot of
Yeah,
people don't talk about it anymore. But
yeah,
that's the first place a lot of those photos wound up being seen, believe it or not. And then, of
yeah.
course, in what was it called? It was Grodin's book first with Harrison Livingstone.
I think it was
Act of
best evidence.
no. That's
Oh,
David Lipton's book. Something about act of treason or something like this. I'll go look it up real fast.
high treason.
High treason. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's what it was. And they published a photographic section which contained good copies of the good black and white copies anyway
yeah,
of some of the autopsy images. But by law, those are not actually the official set. Those are still
yeah,
sitting at the National Archives. So under a deed of gift, and you have to be a doctor and get permission from the Kennedy family's lawyers to be able to go view them.
yeah,
Um, so anyway, I'm sure you haven't done that because only a handful of people that I know at all have ever gone and done that.
yeah,
But anyway, and I've known plenty of people that made the application but didn't get it too.
yeah,
Uh, However, you used what you could, and those are publicly available. And from what I understand, they do represent some of the images
yeah,
in the set of photos for sure. So it's not like they're fakes. It's not like they're not representative of what goes on. The one that they used to love to use in the press, by the way, is what they called the stare of death, where
yeah,
Kennedy's eyes are
yeah,
open and he's on his back, just eyes open on his back on the table.
yeah,
Kind of gruesome image, but of course they would crop it and just show you this dead looking face and tell you about the autopsy photos in news articles.
yeah,
So you saw all that stuff, and you saw online debates, maybe discussions, independently published blog articles, and it just continued your journey. But where do you start collecting your own sources on this and try to get toward the best copies you can and everything? When did that start to happen?
uh, I mean, I know that happened from the start. I was interested in saving a lot of them, but I never, for a while, I couldn't really find good information on who took what.
Mhm.
And so that was a big struggle in getting my archive together. But I soon was able to find sources that said who took a lot of the photos, and I put together a pretty decent archive, and it's been growing ever since.
A couple of controversies you probably came across where you have more than one photographer being named for certain photos,
Yeah.
misidentification. Even some of the films have been mislabeled. For years and years, there have been different ones. You want to tell us about a few of those, a few things you had to solve because at first maybe you thought it came from a certain place and wound up coming from somewhere else. Could you tell us about one or two of those?
Yeah, one photograph I found, it was taken by Arthur Rickerby of Life magazine. Um, it was of a few of the cameramen on the knoll after the assassination, filming the Newmans. Um, uh, I actually found a source, I can't remember where, but it claimed that that image was taken by a newspaper photographer by the name of Donald Grant.
Okay.
Uh, he worked for, I think, the Dallas Morning News. Um, but I found that eventually to be not true.
Mhm. Well, there were a few misunderstandings here and a few misappropriations. After all, as I said, there were local news reporters. There was a team of photographers there that took pictures after the assassination.
Yeah.
Um, have you ever seen Jesse Curry's self-published book, or not
Uh,
self-published, one that was published by the Southland Corporation and distributed?
yeah, I've never been able to read it, but I've heard that he published a book.
I see. Well, you know what? I'm going to have to bring a copy of it with me to Dallas to show it to you because it's got some interesting photos in there
Yeah.
that at the time it was published were not seen anywhere else, by the way.
Oh,
Very interesting stuff. And some of the stuff that's identified in there, I've got questions about still. And that
yeah.
book was published maybe in 1980, I think.
Yeah.
I'd have to look back at it, but it was called like Jesse Curry's personal police chief file or something. I have a copy of it on the shelf over there, but I'll
Oh,
bring that to Dallas. I'm gonna have to bring a few things with me when I sit down with you in Dallas because
yeah.
I already told you I'm gonna make a gift of one book to you. You've got to read, but I'm gonna show you some other stuff because I want to assist you with this research. You're only legitimately, and I'm not saying this to put you down at all, but you're only a couple years in
Yeah.
to something that some of us, take 10 years before we even begin to speak a word about it because
Yeah.
it is deep. Every single aspect of this thing is deep. If somebody thinks, oh, okay, so what? There's only a handful of films, there's a handful of photos. It's not that big of a universe of stuff to study the photos. First of all, you're wrong.
Yeah.
But secondly, give people an idea about that. Like exactly how large of a pool of stuff are we talking about when it comes to photographic evidence regarding this case, just limited to the event itself and the autopsy? And by the way, that's not the only part of the universe there is. You can follow the casket around, you can follow the motorcade around, you can follow them the day before, you can check out Johnson Landing. I mean, there is photographic and film evidence of hundreds of things if you want to
Yeah.
look at it from hundreds of sources, but give people an idea of how big that universe, how big that archive of yours could become if you were to collect every single image that was captured surrounding these events. How give us just a rough idea how large that could be.
Yeah. I'd say if you, let's say, from the
Excuse-
morning of the assassination to the autopsy, all those photos combined, amateur, professional, all of that. Uh, I'd say there's about almost 10,000 photos alone.
Easily. Now that's if you don't break the films into individual frames, by the way. That's count the film as one thing, even though okay.
Yeah.
And you still got 10,000 images, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, no, you're accurate. You're absolutely accurate. And by the way, sometimes there are brand new things that are discovered because somebody didn't realize they had something in their personal collection. Occasionally, things have popped up like that over the
Yeah.
years. And also, let's not forget, part of that photographic universe could include. Have you gone into the Lee Harvey Oswald area of this? Have you gone into the Oswald life photographs? Because he only lived to be 24 years old, and still there's a fair amount. I mean, after all, like I say, Grodin, I always point to him. Sorry to keep bringing him up. I mean, I hope you meet him sometime because you want to have some fun learning some new stuff. This book right here gives you an idea that there is a universe of photographs related to a 24-year-old man that we could learn a great deal about. Now, as to whether he's actually the assassin or not is another question.
Yeah.
not going to answer that one today, but his photographic record is fascinating for the fact that he was only 24. And he was involved in photography. So, okay. But putting that aside, just the events, just the autopsy and the assassination from the morning of, like you said, 10,000 images. And that's, again, you might discover brand new things, or you might discover very overlooked things where people have, played find a needle in a haystack. And I love that. The array in Dealey Plaza alone keeps me busy for days on end if I go into it, looking for something. Which, by the way, have you assembled a fair amount of stuff regarding Dealey Plaza to your satisfaction? Do you think you have a decent collection regarding just those few minutes there that the presidential limousine was in Dealey Plaza, in that area at all? And I do say a few minutes. I realize the shooting event took place in seconds, but we have film of them coming down certain streets. We have Elm Street. We have Main Street. So there's a lot of images that were taken there, guys. So there's a lot to be studied, and it's over the course of a few minutes before and after, and then, of course, getting to the hospital. There's a lot there in those few minutes during this event. So are you satisfied with the collection you have of that just yet, number one? And number two, when you get there, I mean, do you find that most people are not fully aware of all the things that could be viewed regarding the photographic evidence on the event itself? Alex? Oh, hopefully I didn't lose you, or you muted or something. Gee, all right. I don't see him there, but you know what? Maybe he lost me on Zoom and he'll come back around. I hope so. What I might do is decide to take a break here on the live stream and see if we can't reconnect with Alex on the Zoom call, which I'm sending out live on Ochelli.com right now. But yeah, stick around and we'll return after this.
What would I do? Revelation through conversation. In a radio show / podcast. You want the good news? Listen to the Ochelli Effect. Chuck Ochelli is the most underrated voice in all media. News, education, and entertainment. The daily bread from Ochelli.com. Go there. Save yourself from ignorance. Ochelli.com. But we all agreed to put Ochelli.com on and listen to the Ochelli Effect. Revelation through conversation. Ochelli.com.
The Ochelli.com radio network.
Revelation through conversation.
Get ready for the Ochelli Effect.
The second segment on a Wednesday, middle of the week, and it is a wild card, but Alex dropped off the call there, and so we're just going to continue where we left off. We got him back on the Zoom, so all is well. Anyway, let's turn my microphone down a touch on the live stream. All of a sudden, it spiked up loud. All right. Hey, live radio, it's the way it rolls. Anyhow, if you're hearing the podcast, you don't care. It doesn't matter. Time is yours, and you can move it around all over the place, and maybe you didn't even get this far in the podcast. Anyway, welcome to it. Alex Harris is with me, and we're talking about the JFK photographic stuff and how he got into the case, and that's about as far as we've gotten. So I'm going to shut up and let him tell us a little more about it. We were up to the point of saying, well, okay, how large would you say is the universe of stuff? I mean, 10,000, he said. And then I was asking him if he's satisfied with his Dealey Plaza collection thus far, if he thinks he has nearly everything that could be gotten. And then a second question, a follow-up was, what have you learned in collecting that array, which focuses around Dealey Plaza directly? So I'll just give you those two easy ones there. Are you satisfied with your collection? And what have you learned from collecting those photos of the many things that happened just in Dealey Plaza in the space of a very short amount of time? Do you have a complete photo array of all of it, do you think? And if not, what are you missing? And like I said, are you happy with your collection? And what have you learned? So, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say I'm fairly satisfied with my collection so far. I know there's definitely more to collect, and I'm finding more almost every day. Um, but yeah, I'd say I'm fairly satisfied with my archive at the moment. Um, let's see, what was the other question?
Well, I did ask, what you have. Let's go this way. What have you learned as a
Yeah.
result of collecting those photos that, again, are just very tightly collected around the events in Dealey Plaza that day at that time? What have you learned of significance just by collecting those photos?
I've definitely learned that there's quite a few more photos than I thought related to the assassination. Um, I've learned quite a bit about the assassination through the photos. I have a pretty good idea of um, a timeline second by second in Dealey Plaza of all the photos.
Mhm.
And I could definitely make a timeline. I just haven't yet. It's kind of difficult.
Well, that is one of the ultimate goals that I had always hoped to get to if I could have kept my collection together. But an ex wife made sure I couldn't. But, the thing is, if I kept my entire collection together, I wanted to lay these things out chronologically and really say, look, this was happening here and here and here, and almost lay out a second by second of events, people's movements, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like for instance, a very controversial, individual that's often called the Babushka lady. It's of interest when you put together an array of all the photos in Dealey Plaza. Guess what I found? There's about four of them. Now, maybe you found something else, but there's four ladies with babushkas on their head during that time.
Yeah.
That I saw. What about you?
There is definitely seems to be more than one people with that head covering. Um,
Right.
but I'd say there's only probably one or two with a camera. And the one we talk about almost always, the one in the grass section by Elm Street is definitely not a movie camera. That's a common misconception with that. It's almost definitely a box type still camera.
Yes. You know what? I concluded that many years ago, and people have taken issue with me because that contradicts the story of one Beverly Oliver,
Yeah.
who stated that she had a movie camera, and
Yeah.
that is indeed her. Now, look, I'm not asking you to say whether that is Beverly or not in your opinion right now. But matter of fact, maybe that's something you might talk about in Dallas. But it's interesting. You can go into deep studies here and see for yourself a great many things that have been ambiguous, a great many things that we had to take certain people's words for at certain points. But if you look at the photographic evidence, you find people that said they didn't step into the street did. People that said they were facing certain directions at certain times, like the Warren Commission's, star witness, who said he was looking in a certain direction at a certain time. If you look at the photographic evidence, guess what? He's lying.
Yeah.
I mean, these were my conclusions, Alex. Perhaps you could correct me because, well, I'm assuming you have better eyesight than me, and you might see things differently. But I doubt you had studied it as long as I did. Doesn't mean you didn't come to better conclusions, though, because I needed magnification, and I do certainly have bad eyesight. But with the best evidence I could find, there is a whole lot of interesting truth that is revealed in the photographs that contradicts a lot of people's statements. I can say that at a minimum. What do you think?
I'd say there is a fair amount of people who either didn't remember right or did lie about what they were doing at the time of the assassination or before or afterwards. Something interesting that I came across is Associated Press photographer James Oltgens.
Right.
He took a few photos. Apparently took a few photos over at the intersection of Maine and Houston, but it's come to my attention that he might have lied about who took those photos. They're obviously on the same roll as his other photos, but there is some controversy over how who actually took the photos with that camera.
So it's on the same roll of film from the same camera, but as to who was actually in control of it, there may be a controversy. That is interesting. Did you happen to track down anything related to? I'm jumping around a bit through the photos now in Dealey Plaza, if you don't mind. Did you happen to track down anything on one Mr. Powell regarding his photograph of the school book depository? Because that is a rather controversial issue. First of all, how is it that an individual with his background got there? I'm satisfied with his story that he jumped off a train, went over there to go see Kennedy in the plaza, and then jumped back on a train. It's a strange story, but I actually think it's correct. Oddly, what are your thoughts on that and that photograph even of the book depository?
Something I'll drop in here real quick here. I am interested in letting people know a lot of the photographers' full names. That's not an issue that I see talked about a lot, but I will be using the photographers' full names and probably be shortening them to the last names whenever I can. But yeah, there was a photographer. He worked for, he was an Army intelligence photographer by the name of James Wheeler Powell in Dealey Plaza.
Yes, sir.
I think he took a few photos of the motorcade going by. He said he did. And something interesting I found is I saw someone claim that they found Powell in the Altgen 6 photograph. But the place where he is standing in that photograph, I believe it is him, is not at all consistent with his photo. I've stood in the place where he allegedly is in the Olton's photograph,
right?
It does not match up with his photo. So either he ran across the intersection of Elm and Houston, or he was lying, or that's really the only conclusion I came to.
Well, he could have misremembered, he could have lied, or that's about it. Because his statement contradicts what you see in the photographs. And here we go again. There's a ton of this kind of stuff. And look, you've been to the plaza, so you've taken a look at the different vantage points that would have had to have been necessary to get certain photographic images created. And when you start to do that and you start to try and place people in the right place, it becomes a bit of a maze. You can use their testimony to help you sometimes, but does it reveal quite often that things don't line up right? I mean, there is a lot of oddity here and a lot of things to be sorted out. And this has caused a lot of controversy over the years. So, look, I see that you've gotten into some deep studies. I wanted to give people an idea. So we've done that. Can you do me one last favor before I let you go for tonight? Because we had this little technical issue and a few other things, whatever.
Yeah.
And don't worry about it. No big deal. And you're doing great, by the way. Here's the thing. You're going to present in Dallas. Do you already have your presentation laid out?
I do not right now. I was going to present on something, but I changed it a few days ago. I don't know right now what I'll be doing, but I know it's going to be something fairly specific in the photographic evidence. I'm not sure what.
Excellent. Okay. So you couldn't even really give us a good little mini preview here because you're changing it up as we speak. I mean, it is just the beginning of September, and you and I will both be present at the JFK Lancer Conference, the November in Dallas conference, which will run from the 17th to the 19th of November this year. And we'll be there. What is the name of that hotel again? I keep forgetting it. It's
Lorenzo Hotel.
the Lorenzo, right? The Lorenzo Hotel, and that's where we will be. I intend to be introducing Alex and others at the conference. Perhaps if I find something significant enough worthy of presentation, I'll make a presentation. But otherwise, I intend to introduce people and do a breakout room and maybe show a film. I got a few plans in the works, and I'll be giving away pens and a few other things to people at the conference. And I'm planning on bringing a couple of things specifically for Alex. I want him to have some resources that I so happen to have extra copies of, and I want to see his research go further because I stressed it a little bit at the beginning here, but you're 13 years old. This is great that you're interested. I want to see more people in your age group interested. Before we're done, since I couldn't find out about your presentation, let me find out about this. Do you have any peers your own age who are into this, who you've been able to get into this? Are there any friends who are into this just for the photographic aspects, just for the historical aspects? I mean, do you have any friends that are interested in history or, well, deep politics of any kind or any of this stuff? I mean, or are you really the lone wolf in your age group in your area there studying this stuff, again, with great access because you're in the state of Texas? And you have much more access to places like Dealey Plaza and the other historical sites that could be linked to these events very easily. You have ready access to any historical societies and local residents, et cetera, et cetera. But interesting thing is, do you have any peers, though, in your age group?
I mean, there is a few of my friends that I've gotten to do a little bit of more research with me, but none that have done the amount of research that I have. I'd say I'm the youngest one that has done this much research.
Right. Well, I expected that answer. And I say again, look, I got into this. 25th anniversary was 1988. Okay. And that's when I got into it strong and started doing actual research, started calling up people and trying to speak to witnesses, which I found was not the best way to gain evidence, but was the best way to gain a great many leads. And an interesting thing happened there. I was only 16. Now, you're 3 years younger than I was, and I was certainly an oddball. I was a musician. I was a juvenile delinquent, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean that seriously. I was. And none of my peers cared about this. None of them. Not the juvenile delinquents, not the heavy metal musicians. Nope. In Jersey, it was like, shut up, boy. What are you talking about? That crap is on TV. Go watch the thing on TV, because they ran a bunch of documentaries then. And TV was the way to reach Generation X. But YouTube was the way to reach your generation, at least up until recently. I don't know what it is now. TikTok? I don't know. Anyway, guessing. I got kids older than you and younger than you. I know what they're being reached by, unfortunately. But none of them are taking an interest. I can't even convince my own children to take a real interest in this case. I couldn't. They look at it as Dad's crazy crusade. And that's all there is to it. And the youngest one is 9. The oldest one is 23. And guess what? I'm a nut. My daughter understands that I'm a nut. She sympathizes with me, and I know she's okay with me being a nut. My 2 boys, I'm not so sure, but it's all right. They know that Dad is into this. Gonna have to bring some extra resources to Dallas, though, to show you. I'm looking forward to whatever it is you decide to present. If you need any help with your presentation, I'm gonna do this in public right now. If you need any help, please, by all means, I'll be more than happy to give you any advice I can. I've seen a lot of these. I've been through a lot of this stuff. I'm aware of the evidence. I'll tell you all about the controversies that you might step on like landmines here if you say certain things about certain people or certain theories, you know, regardless of the fact that you have facts and, evidence on your side. It doesn't matter. Get ready for it. It is a lot of fun. I really look forward to seeing what it is you do.
Yeah.
And I hope you stick with this because, man, oh man, we need people your age. Not too long ago, I was seen as one of the younger people. I'm 51 now. I was seen as one of the younger people, 20 years ago, okay? Around that 40th anniversary, around that 30th anniversary, I was one of the younger people. And believe me, if you were in your 20s and into this, you were still an oddball. But it's okay. I say oddball lovingly, Alex. Don't worry. I'm not picking on you. This is great. I'm so happy that somebody younger is getting into this. And if there's anything you want to say or anything that we should have said during this discussion, I'm going to give you a chance to turn the floor over to you right now. But again, I want to remind you guys that we'll both be at the Lancer Conference on November 17th to 19th. A bunch of our friends are going to be there from the network, not necessarily Alex's friends, but they'll probably want to meet him because they heard him on the show. And things like that. But a bunch of my friends, including the guy I'm going on a road trip with, and maybe my producer and a couple others will be along for the ride. And hopefully we're going to do a little breakout room for the 10th anniversary of the Ochelli Effect, where we've done hundreds of shows on the JFK assassination. And I even did an awful presentation in 2017. But live there. And I'm so glad this is face-to-face. And thank God we're not having to mask up and stay 6 feet apart, I think. But anyway, we're going to go forward with this. This is going to be a good thing. And Alex will be there as well. And really looking forward to it. So again, if there's anything you want to throw in, Alex, before we're all done tonight, anything you want people to know, anything you want people to think about, whatever you think is important, my friend, go for it. It's all you.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I mentioned this a little bit before, but again, I'm interested in identifying all the photographers and cameramen's full names. I just wanted to say the White House, the photographer of the last 2 days, that film, that was Thomas Moore Atkins.
That's correct.
Yeah, and there's several others I know the full names of. I won't list them out right now, of course. But yeah, I am interested, and I'd like to hear from people if they happen to know any of the photographers' full names, because there's quite a few I haven't found.
Well, I assure you that people that have focused on the photographic evidence can provide you with a great many leads. Verify everything, though, as best you can. And it's interesting, too, because you have situations like you got into the autopsy photos, and one of these days we'll have a discussion deeper about that.
Yeah.
Because after all, John Stringer is the photographer of record, right?
Yeah.
But here's the problem. He doesn't claim ownership of some of the negatives that are in existence. So, and you have this kind of thing has happened a few times where somebody claims the provenance of a photograph has come from a particular photographer, came from a particular source. The oddity of, say, even the backyard photographs, and guess what? Geneva White, I think, had possession of one of those photographs before the HSCA got a hold of it.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things floating around. And did Marina Oswald actually take those photographs or not? Depending on which testimony you read, you can answer it a bunch of different ways. It's not always easy to nail down exactly who it is. So sometimes I think you got to put an asterisk next to the photographer because, quite frankly, it's almost impossible to determine on occasion where some of these images came from. And also, unfortunately, we're in an age where people have doctored things. People have damaged things by digital representation, by other forms of mutilation, etc. And frankly, we're in a bit of a big catch-up game when you're trying to label 10,000 pieces. But I figure if you're determined, you'll get it done. I think you'll get it done.
Yeah.
So, and I'd love to see it. I'd love to see a full-on archive of the photographic evidence available to, the world, really. Yeah. But if you could collect it, I would be most grateful, and I'm sure there would be others who would be as well, especially if we had a searchable database of like every photographic image you could possibly use in to study aspects of the case, I think that would be great. And perhaps we'll talk about that in the future. But anyway, we're all done. Is there anything else that you want to add here?
I think that's all.
All right. So I'm going to end this show the way I end all of my shows. And I want you guys, again, to remember that we'll both be at that Lancer conference in November. And I hope that some of you will join us there. But in the meantime, remember this much, please. I am merely Ochelli. All of you are indeed the effect. Good night.